While the world argues over politics and celebrity scandals, something is unfolding in Jerusalem that almost nobody is watching. In a workshop near the Western Wall, craftsmen completed the final gold overlay on a replica altar. In a secured facility outside the city, 3 rare red heifers have reached the required age. And in diplomatic chambers, the phrase 7-year framework keeps appearing in peace proposals. Same city, same number, same prophecy, written when Babylon ruled the world. The pieces are moving into position. Most people see Jerusalem as just another Middle East headline, another peace talk that will probably fail, another religious dispute over ancient ground. But something different is happening beneath the noise. Physical preparations that haven't existed for nearly 2,000 years are complete. Diplomatic language that matches a specific biblical timeline keeps resurfacing, and the silence from mainstream media makes it even more significant. Because prophecy rarely announces itself with fanfare. It starts quietly, a decision made in private, a signature the world overlooks, a moment heaven records, but earth ignores, until suddenly everyone realizes they were watching Scripture unfold in real time. 3 things are converging right now: ancient preparations, modern diplomacy, and a prophetic timeline written when empires you've only read about in history books ruled the world. This isn't about speculation or date setting. This is about pattern recognition. And the pattern written 2,500 years ago is appearing again in the exact city it was supposed to. To understand what's actually happening, you need to go back to Babylon, to a prophet in exile who was shown the precise countdown of history. Because what Daniel saw then is what Jerusalem is preparing for now. Before we go further, if you want to stay ahead of what's unfolding in Jerusalem, hit subscribe. This channel tracks prophecy as it happens, so you don't miss anything ahead. Now, here's why that number 7 matters more than you think. 25 centuries ago, a Jewish exile named Daniel knelt in Babylon and received a vision that mapped the future with mathematical precision. His people's temple was destroyed. Jerusalem was empty. Hope seemed dead. Then the angel Gabriel appeared with a timeline. 77s are decreed for your people and your holy city. That's Daniel 9:24. In Hebrew, 7s means 7-year periods. 70 times 7 equals 490 years. A divine countdown from the command to rebuild Jerusalem to the arrival of the Messiah and the completion of God's plan. But here's where it gets precise. Gabriel said from the decree to rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there would be 69 7s. That's 483 years. In the 1800s, a British investigator named Sir Robert Anderson did the math using the ancient Jewish calendar of 360 days per year. His calculation pinpointed the exact week Jesus rode into Jerusalem, presenting himself as king before being crucified. The prophecy hit to the day. 69 weeks fulfilled. But Daniel wrote about 70 weeks total. 1 7 remains. That final 7-year period has never happened. It represents a future covenant, an agreement confirmed with many. Daniel wrote that halfway through those 7 years, exactly at the 3.5-year mark, something catastrophic occurs. He will put an end to sacrifice and offering. Daniel 9:27. The covenant gets broken. Worship stops. An abomination takes place in the holy site itself. For over 2,000 years, that prophetic clock has been paused, frozen after week 69. The gap allowed the gospel to spread worldwide, but gaps don't last forever. What restarts the clock? Daniel made it clear. A covenant confirmed with Israel for 7 years. That's why the diplomatic language surfacing in Jerusalem today should make you pause. Because if a modern 7-year agreement involving Israel ever gets signed, it wouldn't just be politics. It would be the moment the countdown resumes. Daniel's message wasn't speculation, it was precision. And now that same number is back on the table. But there's a reason this is all happening in one specific city. Not Rome, not Babylon, Jerusalem. And what makes that location so critical changes everything. From the moment Daniel's vision was recorded, one city has remained at the center of everything: Jerusalem. Empires rose and fell, kingdoms came and went, yet the focus of heaven and earth keeps returning to this ancient city on a hill, not because of its size, not because of oil or resources, because God chose it. Through the prophet Zechariah, the Lord said, "Whoever touches Jerusalem touches the apple of my eye." One verse that explains everything. To God, Jerusalem isn't just geography, it's destiny, and history proves it. Babylon seized it, Persia ruled it, Greece marched through its gates, Rome burned it to the ground in 70 AD, the Ottomans held it for centuries, the British governed it under mandate. Every empire thought it was making history, but they were fulfilling prophecy. Because Jesus himself said, "Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled." Luke 21:24. For nearly 1,800 years, that prophecy held. Jerusalem remained under foreign control until June 1967. In 6 days, during what's now called the Six-Day War, Israeli forces reunited Jerusalem under Jewish control for the first time since the Romans destroyed it. Military analysts called it impossible. The odds were stacked against Israel. Yet in 1 week, the ancient city returned to the people it was promised to. As if God reached into human history and moved the clock forward 1 click. Since 1967, Jerusalem hasn't just been Israel's capital. It's become the epicenter of global prophecy. Every major decision about Middle East peace eventually circles back to this one city. World leaders visit, nations debate its status, and now, as new frameworks quietly get discussed, Jerusalem stands at the center again. Why does every president, every prime minister, every diplomat eventually come here? Because whether they realize it or not, they're standing on the stage where prophecy unfolds. But what's being prepared inside that city right now goes beyond politics. It's physical, it's tangible, and it's been 2,000 years in the making. While diplomats negotiate frameworks, another kind of preparation is taking place, one that reaches deeper than any peace treaty. Just steps from the Temple Mount, an organization called the Temple Institute has spent over 40 years recreating the ancient world of Jewish worship, not as replicas for museums, as functional instruments ready for use. The golden menorah stands behind glass near the Western Wall Plaza, 7 branches, pure gold, crafted exactly as described in Exodus. The silver trumpets used to call assemblies, the incense altar, the table for showbread, the high priest's garments woven with blue, purple, and scarlet thread. Every item matches the specifications given to Moses. They've trained men from verified Levitical bloodlines to serve as priests. They've practiced the ceremonies, the music, the precise movements of temple service. Everything is ready except one thing: a place to use them. But even that obstacle has a solution in progress, because the Institute has also prepared something that hasn't existed for 2 millennia: red heifers. In Numbers 19, God commanded that a perfectly red heifer without blemish be used for purification ashes before temple worship could begin. For centuries, this seemed impossible. Red heifers are extremely rare. But in September 2022, 5 red heifers were flown from Texas to Israel. As of now, 3 have remained unblemished and reached the required age. A rabbi connected to the project said they could begin temple services within weeks if given permission. Not years, not decades, weeks. Think about that. The vessels exist, the priests are trained, the rare animals needed for purification are alive and ready. The only missing piece is legal authorization, a covenant or agreement that allows Jewish worship to return to the Mount without triggering war. The book of Revelation assumes this temple exists during the final days. John wrote about measuring the temple, the altar, and the worshippers, but no such temple has stood since Rome destroyed it in 70 AD. If prophecy speaks truth, a new temple must rise, and for the first time in history, every ingredient is in place. The stones are cut, the priesthood is trained, the city is under Israeli control, the animals are prepared. All that remains is permission, an agreement, a covenant. And that's exactly what diplomatic channels keep discussing. A framework lasting 7 years. The pieces aren't just aligning, they're colliding. If you compare Daniel's vision with what's quietly unfolding today, the similarities are impossible to ignore. Two stories separated by 25 centuries are beginning to overlap. Then, Daniel's prophecy spoke of a covenant confirmed with many for 7 years. A multi-party agreement involving Israel that would bring temporary peace and allow sacrifice to resume. But halfway through those 7 years, the covenant would be broken. Worship would stop. An act of desecration would occur in the holy place. Now, the same pattern is emerging in political language. The phrase 7-year framework appears in diplomatic proposals surrounding Israel and its neighbors. Peace envoys discuss multi-party accords, regional coalitions, shared arrangements over the Temple Mount. The stage looks political, but the script is prophetic. What makes this even more striking is how the infrastructure for such a covenant already exists. International organizations coordinate Middle East policy. Economic treaties link nations together. Security agreements create dependencies. All the threads needed to hold a single 7-year agreement are already woven, and the language matches. Daniel wrote about a covenant with multiple parties. Modern peace proposals involve Israel, Palestinian authorities, neighboring Arab states, and international guarantors. A coalition of many. Daniel specified 7 years. Current frameworks discuss phased implementations over, you guessed it, 7-year periods. Daniel warned the covenant would be violated at the midpoint. Exactly 3.5 years in, something changes. Jesus himself confirmed this in Matthew 24:15, saying, "When you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation spoken of through the prophet Daniel, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." 2 prophets, 6 centuries apart, pointing to the same moment. A broken covenant, a desecrated holy site, and the start of unprecedented tribulation. Look at what's converging. Alliances forming between former enemies. Global powers seeking influence in Jerusalem. Economic pressure for regional stability. And behind it all, preparations for worship that haven't existed since the 1st century. Could today's peace frameworks be precursors to what Daniel described? We can't say with absolute certainty, but we can recognize the pattern. Same city, same timeline, same language, and the world has no idea what it's looking at. But there's something else happening beneath all of this, something about the number 7 itself, that reveals why this matters. Throughout Scripture, the number 7 carries divine weight. It marks the rhythm of creation. 6 days of labor, 1 day of rest. It defines the pattern of time. 7 feasts, 7 trumpets, 7 seals, 7 churches. To God, 7 represents completion, the unfolding of His perfect plan. That's why a 7-year covenant isn't just political arithmetic, it's prophetic precision. When Daniel recorded the 70th week, he wasn't guessing. He was revealing a divine countdown. And for 2,000 years, that countdown has been paused, suspended in mercy while the gospel spread to every nation. But pauses don't last forever. The silence between the 69th and 70th week has stretched across centuries. But every sign suggests it's closer to resuming than ever before. Look around. Wars erupting in multiple regions, earthquakes increasing in frequency and intensity, moral collapse accelerating, technology advancing faster than human wisdom can guide it. Nature itself seems to be groaning, as if creation waits for something to break. And in the middle of it all, the same number keeps appearing. 7 years, the same covenant language, the same city at the center. This isn't coincidence, it's convergence. Prophecy isn't about predicting random events. It's about recognizing God's design in the present, seeing history not as chaos, but as choreography. Imagine a great clock, its gears frozen for 2 millennia. Now, as Jerusalem stirs and the words 7-year covenant return to human conversation, the pendulum trembles. One more decision, one more signature, and time itself will start ticking again. The countdown hasn't ended. It's about to begin, and those with eyes to see will know exactly what hour it is. But this raises the most important question. What does this mean for us? The prophets never wrote to satisfy curiosity. They wrote to awaken hearts. Prophecy isn't meant to fill charts or spark arguments. It's meant to shape how we live right now. Because if Daniel's words are true, if the prophetic clock truly stands on the edge of striking again, then this moment isn't one of fear. It's one of preparation. Paul wrote, "You are not in darkness, so that this day should surprise you like a thief. You are children of the light. So then, let us not be like others who are asleep, but let us be awake and sober." 1 Thessalonians 5:4-6. We're not meant to be caught off guard. We're meant to recognize the signs, to discern the season, even if we don't know the exact day or hour. Jesus warned that in Noah's day, people were eating and drinking, living ordinary lives until the flood came. He said the same spirit of distraction would fill the earth before his return. But you're different. You're watching. So lift your eyes above the noise. Pay attention to Jerusalem, not as a tourist, but as someone who understands prophecy unfolds stone by stone. Pray for discernment. Pray for Israel, and anchor your heart in hope. Because Jesus also said, when these things begin to happen, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Luke 21:28. The signs are here. The hour is late. But there's something I haven't told you yet. Something about what happens at the 3.5-year mark that most people miss completely. Daniel wrote that halfway through the 7 years, everything changes. The covenant gets broken, sacrifice stops, and something stands in the holy place that was never meant to be there. Jesus called it the Abomination of Desolation, the moment that triggers the greatest tribulation the world has ever seen. If the clock starts now, that midpoint is only 3.5 years away. What happens then? What stands in that holy place? And why does it matter to you? That's next.